Webinar today. Today is July 19th. Today's topic will be Hydronic System Solutions software. This is a free software tool. It's not specific to any one manufacturer. There's probably, 20 some manufacturers that are involved with it. I'm going to go ahead and show it to you guys today. I got a few slides I'm going to show you first just to give you an idea what the software does, maybe just 5 or 10 slides, and then I'm going to jump in and actually use the software online here. So I hope the speed is good enough that everyone can keep up. I'll try to go slow so that way the screen doesn't lag behind my talking. But the software is called Hydronic System Solution Software, HSS. Our connection to it at TEC here is that we use it through the Multi-Aqua Group, which is our small chiller and fan coil supplier. They offer the software free for download off their website, which I'll show you in a second. Several other manufacturers do the same thing. The current version of the software is version 5.3. So those of you that already have the software, if you don't have the current version, you can update that. The software is available for free from Multi-Aqua's website, multiaqua.com, and Taco also offers it for free, as do a few others. Taco is the primary sponsor of the software, but there are about, I think, 23 manufacturers involved with this software package now, helping supply data to the software folks, as well as about, I think, 21 colleges, universities, and a couple unions even. So there is a lot of folks putting data into this software. There are full versions of the software that you can actually purchase, but the Hydronic version, which is what we're talking about today, is available for free. So HVAC Solution, which is one letter different than the company I work for, HVAC Solutions, does offer a for-sale package that has ductwork and air handlers and all that stuff, plus the hydronics. Or you can get the hydronic version for free from multiaqua.com. So this is what the software does. This just gives you an idea of a typical drawing, and like I said, we'll go through a couple examples of actually drawing a project out. Basically what you do is you put down your loads, in this case 2 fan coils, and you describe what the load is. So in this case, what were they? 75,000 BTUs. You put those down, you put down what kind of equipment you want, chiller, boiler, draw some piping between them, and the software goes ahead and calculates all the pipe sizing that you need, in terms of what diameter do I need, as well as all the pump sizes. You can also add in just about everything else you could imagine, including geothermal systems, radiant systems, pools, glycol fill stations, heat exchangers. There's a wider range of stuff you can do. I'll try to pull up a couple examples of stuff I've done before to show you that as well, and we'll walk through an actual live demo as well. So here's an example of a simple fan coil job. This can be something simple like this, where I got 3 fan coils, a chiller, in this case a pump down at the chiller for 1 main circulating pump, 3 individual zone pumps, expansion tank and air separator. It can be something simple like that, or it could be something like an entire high-rise with 100 fan coils and a swimming pool and a chiller and a boiler. It can be as complicated or as simple as you want to make it. It's very easy to use. Here's an example of a hot water system. In this case, it has 2 fan coils over on the left side of the drawing, a radiant floor over on the right-hand side. There's a boiler, there's a chiller, there's a chemical feed station on there, pumps, expansion tanks, air separators. Here's some examples of some other smaller jobs for high-rise fan coil job, MRIs, machines, things like that. All right, I just kind of wanted to give you a little background on what this thing is before I jumped in and started actually drawing a job out for you. This is the phone number for HVAC Solution, which is the company that runs this software program, 800-831-0322. Their website is pretty cool as well. They offer numerous training videos on there. You can do them, as you need them, because they're sorted based on topic, or you can jump in and do them all at once if you have nothing but 2 weeks to spare. So this is their website, hvacsolution.com. Up here on the top right side, you'll see tutorials. If you click there, it'll bring up that page, and there'll be a list of various options available. And if you click on any one of them, it'll offer multiples. So there's some intro stuff on how to use the software, some advanced topics, air handler stuff, equipment selections, and as you scroll down here, there's a hydronics section and a steam section as well. Like I said, the hydronic software is free. So as you open that up, you can see there's different ways you can view the file. You can either download it as a zip file and run it, or you can run it live as an AVI movie video. But they're just kind of broken up into little examples so you can kind of see how to do stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and open up the actual software. Let's see real quick. I'll show you guys a couple of quick examples of other stuff too that you can do. This real quick is an example of a geothermal chiller that I drew for somebody a couple months ago. I don't remember who it was, but the software itself wasn't really set up to do a geothermal chiller, but I was able to still go ahead and model it in the software without much difficulty. So here in the middle it shows the chiller. I got fan coils over on the left side. I got expansion tank, air separator, buffer tank, 2 variable speed pumps. That's all on the inside of the building. On the outside of the building, variable speed pumps, air separator, expansion tank, a geothermal field, and I'm also tapping off a heat pump on there for a server room. Just one example of the numerous things you could draw with this guy here. Let's show you one other one, and then we'll do the software. Let's see, which one was I going to show you? Can't find it. All right, I'll find it later. I don't see it on here. All right, well, we'll go ahead and jump into the software. All right, so when you open up the software, you get a blank sheet of paper like this. The first thing you can do is double-click on the white screen or right-click on it and choose Properties, and you can set up some basic stuff for this this project right here. So I'll just kind of go down the list and show you all the stuff you can do. So you can put a description in, which is the name of your project. We'll just call it Test, and location, we'll just say whatever. You can pick your climate zone that you're in. So mine's already defaulted to Chicago because that's the one that I last used. So this is what it's going to pull in for default altitude, which for Chicago doesn't really matter. But it's also going to pull in the ASHRAE weather bin data. So in this case, 91 degrees cooling, 75 degrees wet bulb, -6 on the heating. If you don't like those, I know folks in Chicago like to use 95, 78, and -10. All you have to do is uncheck this box, and you can type in whatever you want. So you can do it however you see fit. I'm going to leave my box checked though. All right, if you go down to the next one, units of measure, obviously you guys are all working in English units. Click on options. I personally like to turn this grid off. This grid is this dotted lines on the white background here. You can leave it on there if it helps you. You can change the size of the grid. I usually leave it off. So you can see now I have a plain white screen. And then there's different default decisions you can change here that will affect your whole project. So under the Hydronic section, I think the software comes defaulted to use the TACO load match and TACO twin T. Load match basically puts a pump on every single load, every fan coil, if you will. If you want to do that, that's fine. If you don't want to do it, you just uncheck the box and it'll take that off, and then you can put in valves instead of pumps. The TACO twin T is basically a product they have that's 2 closely spaced T's as a single piece of hardware. So for the purpose of this example, I'm going to turn those off. You have other defaults that you can set up in here. For the most part, I would leave them as is unless you want to change something specifically. Under piping, you can pick what your default pipe is going to be on the project. So if I'm going to do this whole thing in copper type K, I can check that. And then I can also uncheck any sizes that I don't like 3.5 inch pipe is not all that common, so I already have it unchecked. But if for some reason I didn't want to use 1/2 inch, I can uncheck it and it'll never let me use 1/2 inch. Or if I never wanted to use 8 inch, I could take that one off. I can limit myself down if I want to. Generally speaking, I would leave them all checked with the exception of the 3.5 because you really don't buy that anywhere. And there's a section for steam, which we're not going to even talk about today. And then different values for propane, natural gas. Under electric, obviously leave it defaulted to 60 hertz. And you can also go in and set up default voltages for your equipment. So if you know the building is already existing and you always want to have 40 volt 3-phase for all your fan power boxes, you can do that, or your fan coils or heat pumps or whatever they are. So you can pick the default voltage from a drop-down menu, and pretty much every voltage is available there. Under controls, the control section doesn't really work unless you have the full version. It's not available in this free Hydronic version. So we really won't spend any time on that, but there is a section that you can do for that, and every piece of equipment has a controls table that could be generated. Under equipment preferences, I would leave the defaults here. These are the defaults from AHRI, which sets the standards for equipment testing. So for example, all fan coils are tested to 80-degree dry bulb, 65-degree wet bulb. So I would go ahead and leave those defaults as is, unless you want to change something specifically. By default, if you're selecting a multi-speed piece of equipment like a 3-speed fan coil, it's going to default to picking high speed for your selection. If you always want to select them on medium speed so you have extra fan capacity, you can do that. I would recommend you select them for high and then let them modulate down from there. But you do have the flexibility to change that. And you got the same thing here for heat pumps, just like we had for fan coils. You got to set up different labeling, which we'll talk about in a little bit. If you don't like the default colors, you can change them, but it makes sense to have all the heating pipes in red, all the cooling pipes in blue, and then in this case I got purple selected for pipes that are used for both seasons. Under coordination file options, you can see here some of these files are available to be checked, like bill of materials, equipment schedule. Some are not, like the control point schedule. If you see stuff like that that's grayed out, that means it's part of the for purchase version of the software. So if you wanted control point schedules, that would be something you could subscribe to basically. The free version, you'd still be able to run a bill of materials on the equipment, and as well as equipment schedules for those of you that are engineers and want an Excel schedule of all the equipment you selected. It can output that. I would go ahead and check all these boxes so they'll be defaulted to always be on your system. That way when you open projects, you'll be able to run all those reports rather easily. And same here under coordination, I would have all these boxes checked. Then they'll show up to you on your menu of available reports to run. The last section that applies to the whole project is cost. It doesn't really apply to anybody on the engineering side, but if you're a contractor and you want to use this to try to cost a job, you can do that. I don't know anyone who's actually using this feature. I assume it works. I've not tried it because I obviously don't bid jobs out. But you can put your cost for various pieces of equipment and labor rates in here, and then the software will try to estimate how much it's going to cost to install the job. By default, they're all zero. Obviously, labor rates are different all over the country, so the manufacturer of the software just zeroed them all out, and then you have to put them in specific to your business. But this one is specifically for duct. If you have that version, this section here is pipe. So if you want to put in prices of various pipe, most guys probably already have their own bidding system, so they probably don't need this. But it's there if you want to play with it. All right, so then when you're all done with that, you say OK. All your defaults are set up. You can zoom in and out on the screen by rolling the wheel on your mouse like I'm doing right now to make the screen bigger. You can also use up at the top the zoom in and zoom out arrows. So make it as big as you need it to be so you can work with it. And you can always scroll over as you're drawing stuff out. All right, so where do you start? Actually, let me see real quick if there's any questions that popped up on here. All right, no questions. All right. So where do you start? You start with the loads. So you're first going to figure out the loads for your project like you would on any project. And once you have the loads, that applies to the equipment you have in the actual spaces, the terminal devices. So that could be fan coils, it could be heat pumps, it could be radiant floors, it could be a swimming pool. That's where you want to start. You want to start with the loads and work your way back to the equipment. All right, so in this case, let's do something real simple for the moment. Let's pick, maybe I should go through the top on how this works. There's a section here for wizards, air handlers, and you'll see those are all grayed out because they're not part of the software. That's for free. That's for the purchase version. Rooftops, space, airflow, duct. When we get to hydronic, everything is livened up. All these icons have color to them. That means we can use them and we can draw a full hydronic job. And there's a hydronic pipe accessories tab, which has all of our valves and things like that. Those are all available to us as well. Then there's steam, which is grayed out, and steam accessories, which are grayed out. So this version is the hydronic only version that I'm working with. So under hydronic, I have a bunch of tabs here. If I hover my mouse over them, it'll say what that tab does. So this first one here is Hydronic Boiler. I could click that right now, and it would give me the last boiler I used if I had used one. If not, it's going to give me a drop-down menu, and I can pick it by manufacturer of the boiler, and then type. So here I got an Airco, and I can pick condensing, whatever. Or I can go down here and pick non-manufacturer if I want a generic drawing. Say I'm an engineer, I want to just keep it generic so everybody can bid it. I can do that, click no manufacturer, click the type of boiler I want, a cast iron boiler, or nowadays more likely a condensing boiler, and then whether I have forced or induced air. Next one over here, if I hover over it, is a hydronic heat exchanger, so that'll come into play if I'm doing a pool job or something like that. I got pumping blocks. I have chillers. This is the air-cooled chiller section. There's 2 manufacturers there, and then there's obviously a generic section again if I want to put in screws or centrifugals or whatever I'm working with. Then I got a section for water-cooled chillers. There's no manufacturers listed here. There's just generic ones you can pick. Dry coolers, heat pumps, cooling towers listed here. I got cooling tower sumps. I have pumps of full array pumps available to me. Got vertical inline, horizontal inline, horizontal closed cupption end suction, split case pumps, little small circulators, sump pumps, everything you could think of there. Mixing blocks. Got expansion tanks. I can pick horizontal or vertical, full expansion or partial expansion, diaphragm tanks or compression. Plenty of choices there. I have air separators available on here, tank or inline. Hydraulic separators, chemical feeds. If I want to do a glycol water premix and have that be my makeup water, I can set that up. Storage tanks for buffering and things like that. Mixing storage tanks. If I want to do a ground loop for syncing up with, or if I want to dump heat into a swimming pool off a geothermal system, that's where I can pick this here. So here's my heat source, heat sinks. I have fluid-to-fluid heat pumps, and I have fluid-to-fluid, what is that one? Oh, it's groupings of heat pumps. Then over here further down under more loads, I have terminal units, so I can pick fan coils, heat pumps, fin tube baseboard, radiant floors, console units, chilled beams, anything of that nature. I got process loads available to me, which would be spas, swimming pools, heat exchangers, and then I can have entire buildings on there as a single block. So if I'm doing a campus system with this software, my loads might be my entire apartment building, and then within that tertiary system, I'd break it down in another drawing somewhere. And then I have heating only loads. So that was heating, cooling, two pipe systems. Here's heating only loads. Same kind of thing available to me. And I got cooling only loads. Same kind of thing available to me. Obviously, when I get to process, I have a few more things there, like equipment, like MRI rooms and lasers and stuff like that. Then I have some additional fan coils here listed out, ducted and ductless, hydronic 4-pipe, hydronic 2-pipe. And I got some other ones for heat pumps here. So let's just start out with a simple fan coil job. I'm going to pick well, for now, let's just pick a 2-pipe fan coil. I'm not going to pick it by brand. Maybe I will. I'll pick a multi-aqua one just for show. So I can plop that down. There's my fan coil. So he shows up on my drawing. I can double click on my fan coil and I can set up properties related to that specific fan coil. Typically what I do is I set up the first fan coil, get everything the way I pretty much want it, and then I copy that fan coil for all my other zones because they're probably going to be pretty close. They're going to use the same water temperatures and things like that, and maybe a size or two changes. But I'll set up the one first in its entirety and copy from him. So right now I've set up for heating and cooling season. It's 2 coils in there. If I didn't want any one of these, I can get rid of it. I can say, nope, there's no cooling, or I can leave the cooling listed on there. I can put my loads in here. So say this guy is, let's just say he's 60,000 BTUs. If the boxes are white, you can type in them. If they're gray, you cannot. So for my cooling load, maybe I'll say it's 36,000 BTUs for this fan coil. These are my conditions I picked as default, 80 and 67 for the cooling season, 65-degree dry bulb for the heating season. I'm going to go ahead and leave those that way. If I know my airflow, I can put that in. For the purpose of the hydronic software, it doesn't really matter, but it is nice because it shows up on your equipment schedule. So let's just say it's 1,000 CFM. Oops, 1,000 CFM. And if I already know what kind of fan coil I'm working with, I can put my my static pressures in there. Let's assume for right now I don't. I hit apply. I go down my list to set up other things here. So that was the basic data. Here's hydronic data. I can either let the system float and make its own selections, or I can tell the system that I'm smarter than it is and I want to pick my water temperatures. It gives you a warning. Obviously, most of the guys on this conference call are able to decide what type of chill water temperature, so go ahead and say yes to continue. So in this case, I'll pick 44, and we'll say 54, which is pretty common. On the heating side, I'm assuming we'll use a condensing system, so I'll pick my entering temperature to the fan coil probably be 140, and I'll let it come back at 120. Oops, 120. If I know my my water pressure losses, I can put those in here. Otherwise, for right now, I can leave the defaults in. Description section. If I leave it alone, it'll automatically tag it FC-1, fan coil 1. It does the same thing with chillers and boilers and heat pumps. It automatically tags them, so the second one will automatically be FC-2. If I had an existing project and I was rehabbing stuff, maybe I want to check this box, and then maybe I want to tag it special. Maybe it's called FCU-9. Maybe that's what it's going to be. Okay, I can put that in manually. But if I'm doing a new project, and I'll just let them automatically tag. All right, so most of these things are already defaulted the way I want. Under type, I could go in and change it to a different manufacturer or make it a generic one and then pick that type of unit. My heating loads all propagate through from my first screen. The air side I'm not really worried about for right now. Hydronic heating and hydronic cooling. I could add glycol to this. I'm not going to do that right now. What I'd rather do is leave all these alone so they're in automatic mode right now. And then later on, if I add glycol to my chiller, it'll automatically tell my fan coils that they have to deal with glycol. So I would recommend you don't put it in over here at these individual units, and you do it at the chiller or the boiler. So all these settings propagated through. I can leave these alone for the most part. I can put in as much detail as I want. Like I said, the control section doesn't really apply here. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. So here's my fan coil. It's on my screen. It's tagged fan coil-1. Everything in red, if you remember, I left for heating. Everything in blue is for cooling, and it'll be the same way with everything we draw on here. So 60,000 BTUs heating, 36,000 BTUs cooling. To handle that flow with the drops I gave it, I'm going to need about 6 gallons per minute on the heating side, 9 gallons per minute on the cooling side. Here's my water temperatures, 44, 54 for cooling, 120, 140 for heating. All right, now let's say I have a couple of these. I can click on it. I can right click and I can choose copy, and then I can pick paste. I can drop him down. I can click paste again and drop another one down. Let's say I have 3 of them. You don't have to worry about how well they line up. You could take your mouse and draw a box around them. So they're all highlighted, and you can right click on it and you can tell it to line up. So where do I do that? Let's see. Align, and I'll say align them all on the left side so they look nice and pretty. And I can even go down and space them evenly top to bottom. All right, so everybody's perfect right now, right? All right, so now I need my chiller. So I'm going to pick an air-cooled chiller. Obviously, I only have, I don't know, what do I have, 9 tons or something like that. So I'm going to pick an air-cooled chiller. I'm going to pick a scroll chiller. I'm going to pick no pump on the chiller because I want to show you how it sizes the pump for you. I'll plop him down on the other side of the screen. Then I'm going to draw the piping in between these guys. So up here on the very top, there's an arrow with a right angle on it. Click on him, and that's your piping arrow. The simplest thing to do in my mind is to take your leaving water temperature from the chiller and draw it around everywhere you want to go. Everywhere you click, it's going to make a joint, or it's going to make an elbow. So if I click right here, it makes an elbow. And I can go down, I can move this thing as much as I want, and then wherever I click, it's going to be another elbow. And it'll automatically link just like AutoCAD would. So let's say for right now, I'm just going to draw a loop around. So I got something to work with here. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and tap these fan coils into that loop. Let's see, is that what I wanted to do? I guess we could do it like that for something this simple. So I can tap these fan coils into the loop like this by clicking on them. It tells me there that dotted line means that piping is worthless. So I can click on there and delete that piece of pipe. Obviously, if you have a big building, you're not going to have a single loop like this. You're going to have a primary, secondary loop with reverse return and all that good stuff. But for the purpose of this example, with 3 little fan coils, we'll just do it like that. Delete the extra pipes. Now I can pick a pump on here. So let's just pick the kind of pump. Let's say I want a vertical inline pump. I'll stick them over here. When I drop him on this pipe, you'll see right now on my mouse he has 0 GPM, 0 feet ahead. When I click him on there, he'll then size my pipe up. And if this is in the way, I could just highlight it and move it out. So he's telling me that I need 6 GPM heating, 21 GPM of cooling in this drawing. I don't have any heating plants drawn in, so that's why the heating's just sitting there. I can pick the other accessories that I need, so I'm going to need an expansion tank, right? Let's pick an air separator. So I need an air separator. I can plop him on the drawing somewhere. He'll automatically link into the piping here. I can pick an expansion tank. Let's see, let's pick a, I don't want that, that'll be harder to pipe in. Let's pick in a horizontal bladder tank. And I'll tap him right into the top of this guy where I can read him. All right. So link can probably move down a little. So just like with other programs, you can move things around just by grabbing them so they fit on the screen better. So you notice I got my air separator on here. Here's my expansion tank. It has sized it for me, 4.3 gallons. My pump is sized for me in this example. Now say I want to go back and I want to change something, like I don't want to pipe it this way. I could always go back in and draw whatever I want to make this a little different. I can delete any pipes that I want. And you notice as I'm taking stuff off, it's physically changing my pumps. Now I have 0 pump needed. I can pipe this in a different fashion if I wanted to. So let's say I did that. Take all my pipe off. If I want to draw it differently, I can do that. Say I want to draw it like a more traditional system. I can make my loop look like this. Maybe I'll still give myself some room up here to put my accessories. All right, so now in this case, I'm going to grab my 44-degree water off the supply pipe. I'm going to take my return water back to the return pipe. That piece is extra. I can delete him. So now I got your typical reverse return piping scenario. My blue 44-degree supply pipe is coming here, supplying water to each one of these fan coils. And then my returns are all coming back on this other pipe here. Put my pump in, like I had before. Move him so he fits nice. My air separator. My expansion tank. All right, I can also click on some of these things. Like I told you before, I can click on the chiller. I can set up properties like glycol. Right now he's set up for 4454 because he's trying to match up with what I already told the fan coils they had to do. Tagging, I let him auto tag CH1. If I had an existing machine, I can hit this button and custom tag him the way I want. I'll let him pull the loads directly from the chiller. In this case, I have one chiller, so I'm saying, okay, pull 100% of my load from my fan coils, which is 108,000 BTUs. If I wanted to have 2 chillers in parallel, then I can either have them each say 100% for load portion, which means I have a completely redundant chiller, or I can put them both at 50%, which means each one of them is going to carry half the load. I can do it either way. So look, if I change this to 50% now, it'll say 4.5 tons instead of 9 tons. I'll leave him at 100. We'll just do one chiller for right now. Glycol, got 10% glycol in here by default. Most of our stuff, if we're doing it with an air-cooled chiller, is probably going to be 30% glycol. I can hit apply. If I close that and I go look at one of those fan coils, and I go to hydronic cooling, you'll see he already knows 30% glycol. That's why I said it's easier to change it at the chiller, and then as you change the concentrations, it'll automatically propagate to your loads. So back over here at the chiller, my temperatures are already coming off the other screen. If this chiller doesn't have 15 feet ahead, this is just a safe default. If I know what it's actually going to be, I can put the actual value in. Here's all my loads connected to that chiller, fan coils 1, 2, and 3. Here's the chiller selection it's going to make based on the electrical that I said I have available to me. I can dictate in here who has to provide what. Is the mechanical going to provide the starter? Is the electrical contractor going to provide it? That'll propagate through to your specs. Disconnect, who's providing that? If there is a VFD, who's going to provide it? So let's say right now it's all by the mechanical. If there's emergency power, whose problem is that? We're not going to put that on here. Hit apply. I could add costs in here like I could for the other stuff I was showing you before. I'm not going to do costing on here. All right, so I got a basic system here. I got a chiller, 9-ton chiller in this case, putting out 4454, serving 4 fan coils with a pump, an expansion tank, and an air separator. At this point, I got 3 fan coils on 1 pump, so I'm probably going to want some valves on there. If I go to hydronic pipe up top here, then I have all these valves and temperature sensors available to me. So if I look across here, I got a hydronic 2-way valve, I got a 3-way control valve, just a manual hand valve, balancing valve, check valve. You can put as much detail as you want into this drawing, depending on what stage the project is and who you're making the drawing for. You can put strainers in, you can put joints, expansion joints, relief valves, temperature gauges. If I want to put a temperature gauge on here so I know the water temperature coming to and from the chiller, I can do that. It's a little spot I don't like it there though. All right, we'll just leave it there for now. The valve, let's say I'm going to have a, if I want a 2-way control valve, I can just literally plop it on here like this. If I click on that valve now has all the properties from the project on it. He knows what his flow needs to be. When we print the schedule out, he'll calculate the CV needed and all that good stuff to size it off of. If I wanted to put a 3-way valve, I can click on here and do that. And then I have to draw my other pipe, obviously, to show where my bypass is going to be, but he's going to be right there. So let's say I have all 3-way valves for right now. Plop those guys on. You notice this pipe becomes gray because it doesn't know what to do right now. But once I connect the bypass line, life is good. Grab that piece there. So these are all connected up, and we can keep adding accessories as much as we want. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'll just save it to my desktop as Project 1. And I'll show you some of the reports here, and then we can talk about any questions anybody has, or we can draw up some other systems if you want to see what we can do with this thing. So under File, there's a section here called Open Coordination File. This is basically where you get your outputs. You could take this whole drawing. If you have the full version, you can export it to AutoCAD. If you have the free version like I'm using for Hydronic only, you can't do that. But what you can do is you can cut and paste stuff. So I can draw a whole box around this guy, around my drawing, and say copy. And then I can go put it wherever I want. I can stick it in AutoCAD as a single image file. I could paste it into a Word document. I can stick it in an email, whatever I want to do, but it's a single picture file at that point. The other outputs I have available to me here, Open Coordination File under the File menu. So the first one here is an equipment schedule. It opens up as an Excel spreadsheet. Takes a second. So it opens up here. It gives you some basic data. What did I call it? Test. Where's it at? Here. Here's my outside air conditions that I have set up for this project. Then all my individual equipment schedules are these tabs down on the bottom of the spreadsheet. So if I click on the first one, it shows my air separator. It's tagged AS-1. If I want to put a particular manufacturer in there, I can. I'll show you in a minute how you can have it choose the manufacturer, but right now it's set up to not do that. What type is it? What's my flow? What kind of fluid do I have? What's my loss? If I click on chiller, I get a similar schedule. CH1. It's a scroll machine. What refrigerant is it? I can put whatever I want in there. This one defaulted to 407C. My load's 9 tons. Here's my condenser air data, my flow rate, my glycol, my entering water temperatures. If I picked a particular chiller manufacturer, which I'll show you in a second, then it'll put in all the extra data, KW, MCA, all that good stuff. So down on the bottom here, my expansion tank schedule, my fan coil schedule. For fan coils, you actually get 2 schedules. You get this fan coil page, which is basically the air side of the fan coil. Show me what my motors are and my airflow, 1000 CFM for each one of those guys. If I pick the fan coil tab, then it shows me my water side of the equation. So what are my water temps for heating and cooling off of this guy. Then my pump schedule. this case I only had one pump listed, so he's listed on here. Vertical inline, 28 GPM, 30% glycol, 59 feet ahead. And then my last schedule is my control valve schedule. I had those three-way control valves I put in. They defaulted to ball type bronze modulating electronic control, CVs of 5.6. So you can change all these right here if you want, or you can change them back in the drawing screen. I'm going to close this for right now. If I went into one of these here, like say fan coil 2 was no longer a 3-ton unit, let's say fan coil 2 was larger, so we can put something else in here. Let's say we'll probably bump up his heating too. All right, so I say he's a bigger unit. He's 60,000 BTUs. He's a 5-ton instead of a 3-ton like his other friends are. So you notice what changes here is my chiller changes. Now I need an 11-ton chiller. My flow rates change here. I need more GPM, right? My fan coil changed. Hit save here. When I go back to my file coordination options and open my equipment schedule, everything on here automatically changes. If I go to my fan coil, you see I got 2 fan coils here. I didn't change the CFM like I probably should have, but you'll see the loads did change on this guy here. So it all propagates through, changes my chiller selection. Now I got an 11-ton chiller, changes my control valves. I got 2 smaller valves at 1 1/4 inches each, and then I got this zone that has a 1 1/2 inch valve. So it automatically changes all of that. Okay. Other things you can do on here. Right now you'll notice that my tags have a pink box around them, fan coil 1, fan coil 2, chiller 1. If I want the software to try to find a manufacturer in its database that can provide the specs for what I need, I can click this thumbs up button on the top here, this little hand with the thumb up. If I click that, it says, do you want to view the properties of all the equipment that's modified? I'm going to say no because I don't want to see all those screens again. I already looked at them. All right, so if I found somebody to do what I needed, it'll get rid of the pink box. Oh, I did not do that. Let's see. So it's telling me here it's not selecting my pump because the dual season flow differential is above the okay. Because I told it I have heating and cooling system, I never put any data in for the heating system. So for right now, let's get rid of the heating system. Make these cooling only fan coils. Just for the purpose of making something happen here. Alright, so now I'm going to hit my checkbox. Now it's selected my pump. It selected my air separator. It selected my expansion tank. It did not find me an 11-ton chiller. It did not find me the fan coils I want. If this guy was a little bit smaller, say he was a 4-ton unit, or maybe let's say he was 36-ton, back to what we had. Now I hit the checkbox. It would actually pick this chiller for me because I know that manufacturer actually has a 10-ton chiller. They don't have an 11-ton chiller. But in either case, even if it comes through blank, that's fine because you're trying to size what you need, not what the manufacturer has available. The other thing I could do here, right now, it's made assumptions on everything it could. But if I want to take this piece of pipe here and double click on it, it says it's 0 feet in length because it doesn't know how long the pipe is. I could tell it that's actually 100 feet. And right now it's saying I need 35.7 feet ahead. When I click apply, that number should change. And now it says I need 39.8 feet ahead. If I pick each one of these pipe segments and I put something in, it's going to affect my head. All of it's assuming 0. So that's something to keep in mind with this software. It only knows as much as it knows, and you have to give it as much data as you can, like any software package. So once I go put some realistic links in here for these pipe segments, then it'll start sizing my pump. My GPM stays the same because the GPM is based on the flow needed to do the cooling load, but my feet of head has gone up. All right? Just to give you an FYI. The other thing you can do here, if I want to draw a box around this and highlight everybody, I can right-click on the drawing, and if I go up here to Hydronic Pipe Annotations, I can pick different values to have them actually show up on the drawing. So say I was going to print off this drawing for my my pipe fitter. Maybe I want to put the diameter of the pipe on there. So now it's showing me here, okay, this is a 2-inch pipe on my supply, 2-inch on my return. My zones each have 1 1/2 inch pipes on them. Okay, if I want to pick something else, right-click on it. What else do I want to show? If I want to show velocity or flow or temperature at any given point, I can do that. I'm doing it for the whole drawing right now. I could do it for just a specific segment if I want. So let's see. I can take these guys off. I can delete and take the diameter off. I can come and delete and take off the flow. If I wanted to show just this one pipe, I can do that. All right, so now it's showing me that one pipe is 2 inches and 24 GPM, or excuse me, 28 GPM, and I didn't do anything with the rest of the pipe. So you can pick how much you show on the drawing like that as well. So let's see. If I go back to my equipment schedule, it'll look a little different right now. It's my Excel spreadsheet. Now it should have picked my chiller and my pumps because I told it to do that. So it did go ahead and pick this particular chiller, which was I told it my default was Malta Aqua MAC 120. If I go over to the pumps, it'll say it picked a Taco KS 1506 because those are the ones it found. Fan coil, if you recall, it did not find a manufacturer in its database to match exactly what I had asked for, so it didn't put one in. If I would have looked at that fan coil, it probably would have told me why. Probably some weird little accessory that was defaulted. But if it has a manufacturer in its database, you can choose it to pick it or not pick it. All right. So if I look at these fan coils and I go to selection, it'll tell me why it didn't. Cooling airflow is below the minimum accepted value because I only had 1,000 CFM in there. So if I told it something better, 1,500 CFM, and then I told it to select, maybe it would. And it still didn't. Still below. What did I have in there? It's only a 3-ton unit. Oh, that was the heating I changed. So let's say 1,200 on the cooling is what I need. So now I hit save, hit my checkbox, and still didn't pick it. So it doesn't like something else. I'll have to look at that one. But if you're using it generically, that's fine. If you want it to pick a particular manufacturer, it can try to do that. If you guys have questions and you want to type them in the box there, please do so, and I'll try to answer them while we're on here. And in the meantime, I'm going to try to find one more drawing to show you here. Just see something in my drawing database. Here's one I wanted to show you. I'll just open it as a PDF right now. So here's one I drew for someone, a contractor, a while back. This is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boiler plant. Each one has a dedicated pump. It shows all the piping size on here. It shows the expansion tank. It's showing a tank with a premix of glycol and water feeding in instead of having a city makeup connection. Then I follow my pipe down. This was a primary secondary, so this is my primary loop here. I'm pulling off here from my secondary loop with 2 3-inch lines. I have a couple takeoffs with valves to go to a future expansion area. And then as you come down here, I have, 1, 2, 3 swimming pools on here, or spas, if you will. So I'm pulling off there, each with a pump, and then going into a heat exchanger for another loop that actually circulates through the pool. So you can put as much detail as you want in here. In this case, they wanted manual control valves on here. We've got some temperature sensors. These are the temperature sensors. These are temperature sensors that have control on them, which is that little lightning bolt. You can custom label these, which is what I did here. You can label all these devices. You can add text to these things to do that. Showing all your flows, showing the flow of your heat exchanger. You can go in and put your actual heat exchanger data in if you have it. If you have existing pipe, you can force it to accept the size of that pipe instead of auto-selecting it. So lots of cool stuff you can do like that. I'll show you a couple of those things right now. So if I wanted to add a note, I can go to Insert, or I can right-click on here and go to Text Annotation. I get a box. I can type whatever I want. And then I can play with the font and all that stuff. You know, if I want to do that, I can play with it. But for right now, I'll just say this is a test. I can put it down. I can put that text anywhere I wanted it to be. So if it's something to do with this pipe here, maybe it says existing pipe. I can leave that label on there. I can change it, make it smaller, make it bigger. On individual devices, I can change the tags on them. So I don't want this guy to be called, this valve to be called CV-fan coil 3. If I want to call it something else, if I want to call it valve 1, I can do that. You can see there, By zooming in, I can see it's labeled as valve 1. That'll obviously carry through over to the schedule. All right, let's see. Go back to Hydronic here. If I wanted to add something else to this guy, if I want to add a different type of load, under the cooling loads, I could pick something, whatever it was. Actually, I have a cooling only system, so fan coil seemed pretty appropriate. But if I wanted to grab radiant floors for a cooling system, I could do that. Not a lot of places do radiant cooling, but you certainly could. If I want to grab a radiant heating floor, I can do that. It shows up as red, right? But it looks, as far as the software is concerned, it's just another fan coil. I can literally pipe him in if I wanted to. Oops, let's grab that pipe. Tap him in there. I could tap him in there. Obviously, I wouldn't have the heating one. I could have a radiant cooling floor in this application if I wanted to. Set up his values. Obviously, I wouldn't be using 44-degree water on a radiant floor. I'd have to change my system around here, and I'd have to work with higher temperatures to avoid condensation. But I could literally plop any kinds of loads I want into here, deleting what I don't want. It could be the same place could have an MRI machine in it. Boom, I could drop him down. I could connect that machine in. If I don't like where it's putting my lines, I can always move them over to make them prettier. Line them up. This could be my MRI machine. He probably could work with 44-degree water. He probably would have some kind of pump or valve control on there. I do have a question on here from Steven. Does software issue warnings for high-low pressure, improper flow paths, mismatched flows, unacceptable mix-max conditions, etc.? The answer is yes and no. So it doesn't issue anything regarding incorrect pressures on here, because that would be kind of dependent on, well, I guess the piping and pumps would matter, but a lot of it's dependent on the equipment as well. But other stuff like improper flow paths, it definitely does. So let's just say, for example, I decided that, here, let's take this guy back off. I threw this MRI machine down, and now I'm going to connect my load, but instead of connecting my supply load to my supply pipe, I made a mistake and I connected to my return pipe. And I connected my return to my supply on the drawing. You'll see what it does is it put these dotted lines on here saying, I don't know what you're trying to do. Dotted lines means something's not yet right. You notice when I piped them correctly, I didn't get those dotted lines. Okay. Now, for some reason, this guy did need to be piped backwards, and I don't know why an MRI machine would ever be piped backwards, but let's just say it did. Oops, I did exactly what I didn't want to do. Let's say I piped it backwards and it yelled at me and told me I was an idiot. Put the dotted lines in. What it's really saying is I don't know where you're getting this water from anymore. I thought this was a cooling system. Now I'm not sure what you're doing. I could double click on these lines and I could tell it what I want it to do if I know what I want it to do, assuming I wasn't wrong. So if I come under here under hydronic and under flow direction, I have it set up for automatic. I can tell it to do something different. I can tell it I'm flowing up to down to up. I can tell it's a dual flow path in between. Water can go either way. So I could force it to do something. Flow bottom to top. I could say it has to do that, and it'll try its best to correct that, if possible. In this case, it's just a really stupid thing to do to pipe your return to your supply and vice versa. But in the case of that geo job I had, let's see if I can open that. Where's that at? Open that geo job. Or wait, let's save this. File open. Carrier geo chiller. Here's my file, my working file. Notice it does have some pipes there that ended up staying dotted because it didn't know what the hell a geothermal chiller, it didn't know what a geothermal chiller was. So I had to force in these values, these temperatures, and these flow directions. So I had to go in here and tell it that I want my flow in the heating season to go from left to right, and the cooling season, that particular pipe doesn't even get used. And this one over here, heating season right to left, and I'm not using the cooling. So each one of these I had to go in and tell it what I wanted that thing to do. So that way all the calcs work out. It displays the correct temperature for the correct season, all that good stuff. But it stays dotted because it's saying you don't know what you're doing. But that's because I was doing something the software wasn't yet set up to handle. So hopefully that answers Steven's question. Does anybody else have any other questions they want to throw out there? So this is a pretty cool software package, and mainly it's cool because it's free. Free is always good. It's free because various manufacturers of equipment are sponsoring to make it free. So that's a nice thing for us that use it. I've yet to find something I couldn't model on it. I mean, like I just showed you, I did a geothermal chiller, even though that didn't exist in the software. I got jobs with radiant cooling floors. I got jobs with chilled beams, and then just normal basic jobs with a boiler plant and a snow melt system, for example. All that kind of stuff you can model in here. The thing to keep in mind is whatever you put in, garbage in, garbage out. So if you forget to put in pipe links, and you have every pipe link set up to the default of 0 feet, well, yeah, when you get to the head of the pump, it's going to say very minimal, because all things you have is a bunch of coils sitting right next to your chiller. So you got to put the pipe links in. You got to pay attention to stuff like that. You got to pick realistic water temperatures. You still have to draw a loop the way you normally would draw a loop for your job. It's not going to tell you the best design for your application, but it will do its best to tell you if you're piping it wrong once you do pick your application. Do have another question from Hal. Will the solar portion become free as manufacturers begin to sponsor? That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know how they decide what to do for free and what not to do for free. I didn't even know they had a solar option, to tell you the truth. Let me just see on here if we even have a solar option to throw on here. That would be, where would that be? One of these guys. Those are all of our available heat sink sources. It's none of the boilers. Yeah, I don't see anything related to solar on here today. Unless I'm not looking in the right spot. Yeah, these are all loads. Yeah, the only section that would show up would probably end up being here, where you have heat sink sources, and one of which could be solar panels on your roof to grab water from. Oh, he's staying next to the boiler. Okay, here's what he's talking about right here. So Hal has pointed out right here, next to the boiler, there's a solar collector that is grayed out and not available now. I don't know if they plan on making that free. I didn't realize that was even there. So we can ask the manufacturer of the software what they're going to do with that. My guess is it's trendy, so it's not free. But let's see if their website says anything about what you got to do to buy software or what's included. Yeah, but basically, Hal, I guess your question is yes. The solar portion, I guess, would probably become free if someone sponsored it. Right now, Taco, the pump manufacturer, has sponsored this Hydronic software to make it free, and they partner with some of these other manufacturers to get some revenue from them. They got some marketing behind it, and that's why it's free, is because Taco put some cash out along with Multi Aqua and several others. But I imagine if someone on the solar thermal end decided they wanted to sponsor it and make that portion free, I would imagine the software manufacturer would do it. Their goal, the software manufacturer's goal, is to get you to try and use their software, and if you like it, you're probably going to like it for more than Hydronics, and you're going to want to buy the duct version and stuff like that to liven up those sections. But if you don't, it's still free, and at no point in time in the past 4 years have they ever come to me and said anything about paying, or they never spam me and ask me to give them any cash for anything. It's just if I ever want to upgrade, I know I can go to their website and do that. You can actually go to their website and get a free trial of the whole thing. So if you wanted to see how that solar portion worked and looked, you can come to the HVACsolution.com website and go right on the front screen here. You can download a free trial of the whole software, and I imagine it's one of those 30 or 60-day type deals. And then after that, you have to pay to continue it. So you can do that just to see if you like it before you actually buy it. Same with the airside stuff and all that kind of stuff. Just for entertainment, we'll go to purchase here and see what they charge for one of these things. I don't really even know. I don't know what the difference is on these. Okay, I guess if you don't own it today, it's $1,800 software, so it's fairly pricey. I don't know how many licenses you get with that. It gives you a description on it. You can check that out if you're interested in it. But I would say just use the free Hydronic software version. See what you like about it. See if you can make use of it before I even thought about buying anything. Like I said, I use this free Hydronic one, every week, and I've never had a reason to go buy anything. But I guess if I want to do a solar job, I'll have to keep that in mind. You have to download it and see what it does. Otherwise, I would just, in terms of modeling on here, I would put a boiler in there, and then later on I would switch out the boiler with a solar collector. Is what I would do in terms of modeling it if I didn't want to pay for the solar collector portion. Obviously, including it probably gives you a bunch of features to help guide you, but to go from there. I've not been one to use the wizards because the wizards weren't there when I originally started using this software a few years ago. But there are wizards here. They kind of ask you simple questions to kind of walk you through stuff. Okay, I got a cooling only system. My mechanical room where I want to be, and I want to be in the right of my drawing. Okay, I want an air-cooled chiller. Okay, I want one chiller, or maybe I want two chillers, and I want it to be, each handle 50% of the load. Do I have a preferred manufacturer? I want, scrolls. I want ethylene glycol, 30%. And I want 44-degree water. Answer some basic questions. How do I want this thing to be laid out? Primary, secondary, primary only. What kind of pump do I want to have? I can answer those questions. What I want on my secondary pump, my expansion tank, my air separator, and then it'll actually give me an entire block like this that I could literally drop somewhere. See if I go to the next screen here. Oh, where did I drop it at? Okay, I dropped it over here in this fourth window pane. But I can drop that down, and now this whole thing is set up, and now I can connect my loads to that. So it's kind of nice because it already put the valves and stuff in there and air separators, and it kind of already built the whole thing for you, and then you can go connect stuff to it. So you can do the wizard like that to follow through to get your plant, or you can do like I did and build your plant the way you envisioned it being. So you can do it either way. If no one else has any further questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the webinar. I appreciate you guys all logging in and sticking with me for the full hour. I know watching a software demo online is probably not that exciting, but I thought this was a cool software tool that you guys might find useful, you guys that do boiler work or chiller work. Like I said, it's free, which is always the best part. I'm not paid like any type of weird commission or anything to help them promote it. I just like using it because it helps people put out professional looking drawings. Obviously, if you're an engineering firm and you got everything built into your CAD and stuff like that, life is good. But if you're a smaller guy or a contractor and you want to kick out a good looking drawing, you can do that. And it also helps you out with terms of sizing stuff as well, as long as you are careful to put in the correct assumptions up front. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop the webinar. And if you guys have any further questions, you can give me a call or email me. 708-670-6383 is my cell phone number. And this webinar should be posted as a recording for viewing by others in a couple hours. Okay? Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.